Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is Sunday, October 2nd, just after 11 o'clock in the morning. The temperature is right around 70 degrees and the humidity is right around 70%. So hey, I'm gonna conduct an in-depth inspection of each hive. I'm really checking to make sure they're queen right, and then try to conduct a relatively quick inspection, basically seeing how the brood's looking in each of the colonies. So if you didn't watch the previous video, which was last week's inspection, my primary focus and idea was really to look at hive number 1, which is in the 3rd position down there, because the front entrance activity was a lot less, a lot fewer bees coming and going than all the other hives in comparison. So I started with that, and then even though I said I wasn't really going to get into all the hives, I almost did, because I went from hive number 1 in the 3rd position, and their queen looks like she's aging or failing and just not doing all that well. So I ended up going down into 5, 6, 7, and number 1. So practically all the hives, looking for a few frames of eggs, larvae, and maybe some capped brood to move over to number 1 in order to give them a boost. And by providing eggs, if you don't know, it gives the bees an option to try to rear a new queen. So ultimately that did not really work that well last week. I ended up putting number 1 back together. I did not move any frames from any of the hives I just mentioned into number 1, because unlike all the weeks in the past, I could not find the queens. There were signs that the hives that I mentioned were queen right, but I could not find the actual queens themselves to cage them and isolate them so I can move some frames over. So as you can see, just in numerical order, the first 2 hives, they're looking fine, nice activity. The 3rd hive, which is number 1, still not a lot of activity at all. And then the rest of the hives moving down, 4, 5, 6, and 7, all look fine. That nuke box is still empty. So in an effort to make a shorter introduction video than last week, because that one was pretty long, that's what I'm up to this week. So in-depth inspection of all the colonies, still trying to get number 1 moving in the right direction, considering it is now October, and historically we do have a cold front, or frost is what I really meant to say. We do get our first frost in October, later in the month, but there's only a limited amount of time left to get the hives really as healthy as possible for any sort of winter onsets. I did make some feed this morning, so that water's still hot. I'll let it cool down for a few hours, and I'll probably give it to them this afternoon. So anyway, that's the plan for today. Let's get into the hives, see how they're looking. I'm just going to go in order, and I might, well, yeah, I'll just go in order. I was going to say I might do number 1 last, but that really wouldn't make sense. So anyway, let's see how they're doing for the week. Oh yeah, totally forgot to mention post-tropic Ian. I think that's what the news weather forecasters were calling it, Hurricane Ian, but after it got downgraded to a tropical storm, but after it was a hurricane. Technicalities, I guess. Really unscathed from the post-tropical storm. All I did, as you can see, and if you didn't see the Instagram post, I just put cinder blocks on top of all the hives. I didn't bother strapping them together, because our wind gust projections were like in the 30s, maybe 40s, which really isn't much for us. And then if you take a look at the surrounding area, one of the many reasons I like this bee yard is it has some pretty nice mature bushes and shrubs and trees that provide a really nice windbreak. We've had this bee yard over here for about 5 years now, and it's survived a lot worse storms than Ian, and I haven't done much more than what you see here. So just wanted to share that. Bee yard's intact, as y'all could see, and Hurricane Ian did not cause any damage at all for us here. All right, just removed the top of number 1, and if you can't tell, there's a whole bunch of bees in there. Quick look at the fourth frame in the top box of hive number 1, and the bees are definitely bringing in the goldenrod. You can smell it, and they're doing a nice job of capping and carrying the honey. All right, quick update on hive number 1. I found their queen, nicely marked, nicely mated, really nice size to her. I found her on, I think, frame number 4. So I went and grabbed an inner cover and a telescoping outer cover, and I'm gonna hang the cage right here. I removed just one frame, one of the outer frames, to make some space for the cage to hang. So I'm just gonna hang the cage, put the cover on, leave the frame that I removed on top to remind me. But the reason I'm doing that is so I know I have a caged queen. So when I get into hive number 1, if I need to pull some frames, which I'm anticipating I will still need to do because they don't look any better than last week, I already have a caged queen, so I don't have to dig through the whole colony to find her again. So that should help this week's inspection, and my intent once I get down into hive number 1 there, should help me move a little quicker. All right, down here in the hive in the second position, just popped the tops on it, smoked them a little bit, which drove some of the bees down. Decent amount of bees on the bottom side of the inner cover, but the bees were really concentrated over here. I'm hoping to find some brood. Not too much going on here, but it does look like they have been bringing in some nectar and making some repairs to some of the wax. So we'll see what that looks like here in a little bit. I'll go through the entire box and show you anything interesting that comes up. All right, I'm on frame number 8. It looks like the queen has not moved into the top box yet because I'm not finding any brood. But as you can see, the bees are definitely making good of the resources that are in bloom right now, capping some honey, and the rest of that frame, even though it's probably hard to see, it's filled with nectar. All right, let me get into the bottom box and see what they have going on. All right, I'm on frame number 5. The first few frames had some really nice weight to them and really full of food stores and capped honey. And because of the wide amount of open cells, I got my flashlight just to check to see if they're queen right, and they are. There are eggs in practically every single cell on that side, which is what you want to see. But I'm still going to move through the rest of the frames. If I can cage the queen, I will, because of my intent that I said in the intro with getting number 3 moving in the right direction, and that might involve moving 3 to 4 frames from a few other colonies into, I keep saying number 3, it's in the 3rd position, but I have number 1. So let me get back into this and I'll show you what I find later on. All right, frame number 8, queen right there, should be in the center of the screen, yellow dot. Pretty decent in size, one of the darker queens I have, just like hive number 1, but unlike hive number 1, she's actually doing a really nice job. So I'm going to do the same thing I did in the very first colony, is cage her like you saw, rearrange the top box, basically remove one frame, hang that cage, and because I'm going to be in hive number 1 next, I've already identified a few frames that I plan on moving over into that colony to really give them a boost. Oh, this is a heavy frame. It's got a lot of food on it. Yeah, look at that. They're definitely bringing in the goldenrod. Look at that beautiful pollen, that orange pollen right there. Hopefully the camera is focusing on that. All right, yeah, let me do the same I did for the very first colony, and then get into number 1 next and see if I can give them a boost this week. I know I said I was going to get into hive number 1 in the 3rd position next, but I changed my mind just like that, and I'm going to get into the hive in the 4th position, mainly because number 1 and number 2, those aren't the right numbers, but the hives in the 1st and the 2nd position found their queens, caged them. They're still caged, which is why I have one of the frames from the top boxes out, just to remind me. And they both have some nice looking frames down in the bottom box in the deep that I can move over into number 3. So I don't want to take too many frames from each colony. My original plan was to take 2, but I'm gonna try and basically move through the rest of the colonies, and if I can rob about 1 frame from 3 or 4 hives to get number 1 looking good, that's what I plan on doing. That's why I didn't move any frames just yet, because I'm going to get into the rest of the colonies, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and do just that. So wish me luck. We'll see how this goes. All right, just a quick look of the hive in the 4th position. This is the first hive that has a top feeder on. But yeah, nice concentration of bees right here in the middle. Same thing, gonna move frame by frame, see what they're up to. Most likely packing away some of the goldenrod that's in bloom. And same method as the previous colonies. Search for the queen, hopefully cage or isolate her. Take a look in the deep box, see what frames they have that I could possibly rob to get number 1 moving, and call it a day, hopefully. All right, just pulled the 4th frame, and it makes sense why the bees are concentrated on this. I don't know if this is going to come up on camera or not, but if you happen to see it, there are a ton of larvae and eggs throughout this frame. So this is exactly what I like to see this time of year, early fall, the queen moving up into the top box and really using the extra space provided by the medium box to expand the brood's nest. All right, just a quick first look into the bottom box. Definitely a strong colony. Nice to see the queen moved up into the top box. So hopefully I can find her, cage her, isolate her in the top box. All right, check out this 5th frame right in the middle of this colony. Strong colony, very nice brood pattern. Haven't found the queen yet, but just wanted to show you some of these colonies have some really nice brood frames. All right, something else I'm doing this week. I know I have 2 hives that have screen bottom boards, and with the cooler temperatures we're getting at night, I'll be replacing those 2 with solid bottom boards. All right, down here at the hive in the 5th position, just pop the top, give them some smoke. We got a nice concentration of bees in the top box, so we'll see what that looks like. Hopefully, if I find some brood up here, that'd be awesome. If I find the queen, even better. And the plan continues to be the same, so see how this goes. All right, so I'm only on the 3rd frame, and I just wanted to show you real quick. They are definitely bringing in what I'm assuming is goldenrod, because you can definitely smell the difference, and hopefully you can see all that shiny substance. That is the nectar before they start curing it into honey, which is those 2 cap sections. Same thing on the next frame. That looks pretty nice. Just wanted to show real quick. And there we go. That's exactly what I wanted to see. That is the 5th frame right in the middle of the top box. Beautiful brood pattern. So what I like to see is the rainbow. So you got a band of honey, a band of nectar, very thin. And if it comes up on camera or not, let's see. You can see eggs, and then of course on this section, if that picks up, some larvae surrounding the nice rainbow of capped brood. Textbook frame, beautiful to see this time of year. Found a beautiful unmarked queen. Let me cage her real quick, and I'll have to grab my marking tool. Alrighty. And she was in the top box. Alright, let me get her marked up. There we go. There we go. All set. Set her aside so that can dry. I'm gonna move through the rest of the top box briefly, just to see how those frames are looking, which are really just the last 2 to 3 frames, and the bees really propolised these frames together quite well. So it's nice to find a queen in the top box, and she really has a nice brood pattern too. It's more of a food frame. All right, so that was pretty easy. I successfully moved her from the marking tool into a queen cage. I'm gonna do the same as I did for the first 2 hives. Just hang the cage in the center of the inner cover, put the top cover on, so I know exactly where she's at. Actually, I need to get into the bottom box still, so I should do that first to see if they have a few frames. I'm sure they do, that I could possibly rob and get number 1 a little more healthy. All right, I'm about to get into hive number 1. So I've gone through, let's see, the first 2 hives, and then 4 and 5, just finished with 5. And I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I marked 2 frames with nice brood, or really eggs and some larvae, that I plan on moving over into hive number 1. I did not do that for the other 3, 1, 2, yeah, and 4 that I just mentioned, but I'm gonna have to go back through, and I think I remember it's like some of the first few first few frames and then the last few frames. But yeah, I'm ready to get into number 1 in the 3rd position, move some of the frames. In fact, since I'm going to do that, I'll pull these 2 frames now, set them aside, and really try to get them again moving in the right direction and just boosting their population. Well, this is a first for me. I rarely have more than 1 hive open at once. So, time to get into number 1 right here and help them out. I turned the camera off for less than a minute and I missed showing you a first look. I don't think it would have really came up on camera anyway, but a few wax moths flew out of the hive, which, if you don't know, it's not necessarily a good thing. All right, well, let's see what we got going on. They were in the top box, so I'm hoping that's just an isolated issue. All right, so I definitely have 2 frames from 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 2 frames ready to go from the hive down in the 5th position, which I know will definitely give this colony a boost, so they can afford to lose this one. Speaking of wax moths, what's up with this? I don't see any trails. Let me set that one aside. Let's look at the next frame. So this was my concern. All right, that's a drone. This looks like nothing but food. My concern was they may have created a honey-bound situation. So this is a frame they can lose. And in fact, last week when I went through, they didn't really have any brood. This is a little more capped brood than I remember seeing. And it was really spotty at best. So let's look at the next one. And this was one of the darker queens that I have. She was marked, so I'll find her. Not right now. And it's hard to tell if they have any eggs, because this is not plastic foundation, it's natural foundation. Anyway, I'm gonna move through this and I'll show you what I'm up to at the end here. All right, just got done moving 4 frames from 3 colonies into number 1, again, to try to give them a chance of survival, boosting up the colony's health. So initially I just marked them with some tick marks, and then I figured since I'm moving frames from quite a few colonies, that'll get confusing. So I moved these 2 frames, as you can see, maybe not, from number 5. I moved this frame from number 2 and this frame from number 4. So I guess I'll see you over the next week or 2 if moving these 4 frames into hive number 1, which is being ran as an 8 frame. So I basically just moved 4 new frames into them that contain capped brood, larvae, eggs. I didn't even bother looking for the queen. I didn't find her on the 4 frames that I removed. Obviously I looked for her before moving those frames into the other colonies. She might be in the top box, but I'm just gonna let them go and see what they can do with the 4 new frames I provided them today. All right, so I released hive number 1 and 2. I released their queens. I didn't cage a queen in number 4, and then I released hive number 5's queen. So all I have to do now to finish up for the day is get into number 6, see how they're looking, and then get into number 7. But so far this week, unlike last week, way better inspections, finding queens, nice brood patterns, everything you want to see. Last week was a little discouraging for whatever reason. I was out here much later in the day. Not that that really had anything to do with it, but it may have, who knows. I felt kind of rushed because it was later in the day. The sun was kind of messing with my eyes, being lower in the horizon than directly overhead, which it is now. But anyway, let me finish up and I'll provide a summary in closing and get out of here. Just got done with the top box in number 5. Really not much going on. Bees bringing in some goldenrod or whatever else is in bloom right now. Working on creating something out of that, but the bottom box, that is nice. Quite a few drones. I don't know if you can see that or not. Quite a few drones that really stick out. I got caught up moving through this colony that I completely forgot to share anything with you. So 10, 9, 8, 10, 9, 8, 7. So this is the 7th frame. Nice brood. Right in the middle there, some of the open cells, I can see some eggs. But yeah, look at the brood pattern on that side. A lot of new bees, real dusty looking bees walking around. That probably just hatched. I don't know if that's gonna come up, but maybe right in the middle of the camera, or some of those open cells amongst the capped brood. There's some bees that are in the process of hatching right now. Yeah, I just got busy moving through this colony pretty quickly and forgot to show you what I was looking at. Let's get into the very last frame. I have not found the queen yet. That's why I went back a few frames just to make sure they were queen right, because although it's nice looking at capped brood and larvae, you definitely want to make sure they're queen right. And I did not check the entire top box. I just looked at a few frames quickly. So she might be up there, or she may be on one of these frames that I kind of breezed over, but there's enough evidence that number 5 is queen right, and their population should be exploding in the next week or 2, judging by all the capped brood they have. All right, first look at the top box in number 7. I just took off the top feeder and smacked it a little bit to get some of the bees off of it. So not a complete disrupted first look, but nonetheless, quite a few bees in the top box. Same thing. I'm gonna go frame by frame, see what I can find, and show you if I find anything interesting. All right, well, I told you I would show you something interesting if I found it, and I found the queen, same queen, marked, really big in size, but surprisingly, I found her in the top box and on a food frame. So I don't know if she was just trying to avoid me, knowing that I'm looking at the hive, but not somewhere I would typically expect to find her. So let me cage her so I can move through the rest of the colony and see if the bottom box holds any surprises. All right, one last first look for the day. Bottom box at number 7. This colony's really come along in the last 2 months. All right, I'm just gonna go frame by frame, quick look at the brood. Already found the queen, got her isolated in the top box on a food frame, a frame that had no brood. nothing but nectar that the bees will cure into honey in the next week or two. But sure enough, I was very discouraged last week because I couldn't find her, and she's one of the newer queens, nice queen too. I was really discouraged last week. Oh yeah, one last thing I have to do this week with this one. I'm gonna switch out the screened bottom board for a solid bottom board for the same reason. Cooler temps this time of year, so just to help the colony retain some of the warmth they create. All right, caged a whole bunch of queens this week, but this will be the only one that I show you all being released, just because the others I was in a little bit of a rush due to getting hive number 1 healthy. All right, there you go. Let me put number 7 back together, and that's it for today. All right, that does it for me. Way better time in the bees this week in comparison to last week. Let's see if I can do a quick recap based off memory. So in reverse order, as you just saw, found number 7's queen looking great. Much of a surprise, found her in the top box on a frame that contained nothing but nectar. So no real reason to find her there. That's a first from what I can recall, but nonetheless, that's where I found her. 6, 5, I'm pretty sure I found all the queens, maybe not number 6, maybe 5. Well, that's actually 3, but in the 5th position. I did not find number 1's queen, but that was the focus of today. I also was not looking for her. I looked for her briefly as I removed frames from that colony, of course, but I added frames from, let's see if I can remember, 4 and 5 for sure, and maybe 2. Maybe not anything from number 1. But I did find 1 and 2's queen. 3 was today's focus on get well plan. Found number 4's queen, maybe 5 or 6, one of those 2 I may not have found, and 7 for sure that I just finished with. So we shall see if my plan of moving 4 frames from a few of the hives, 2, 4, and 5 I believe, into hive number 1, we'll see if that helps hive number 1 get better. So a few of those frames that I provided had eggs, which was the main intent, because at that point I'm giving the colony the decision whether or not to produce a new queen and to replace the queen that they currently have. So that's it for this week. Try not to make such a long-winded summary outro portion of the video. The bees are definitely enjoying this nice weather post tropical storm Ian. In fact, I shared a story on Instagram, if you didn't catch that, before and after, which hurricane prep was simply just putting some cinder blocks on top of the hives, as you saw in the intro. And then the day after the storm, or the next day that we had nice weather, the bees were flying just as much as you see now, just enjoying the break in the rain, because we had about 24 hours of light, constant rain. All right, anyway, that does it for me. Haven't said this in a while, but if you are local to the Jacksonville, North Carolina area and you're looking for some local honey, we do have some in stock from our summer harvest. However, once it's gone, it is gone. There's a few ways that you can basically make your purchase with us. So we sell only through the Square site, which is appointment based. In the banner on YouTube, there's a square icon. You can click on that. It takes you over to the Square site, or you can look us up on Google Maps and click on the Square link there. At that point, just pick a day and a time that works for you. You pay through the site and you'll pick up your honey from our front porch. All very seamless, cashless, rather easy to do. So if you're looking for some local honey, we do have some. It is a beautiful light yellow color and taste, just as good as it looks. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. We will see y'all next time.